Here we go again, watching me shave my son's hands. I want to talk about some different removal procedures and why we may not be doing this in the future for a little while. But first, let me explain to everyone new here. This is a skin condition that's actually a genetic mutation. This is epidermolytic palmoplantar keratoderma. It's not a callus on top of our normal skin. It's not autoimmune. It's not inflamed. Has nothing to do with gut health or liver health or any of that. I know most skin conditions do, but this isn't. In this case, we have a mutation in the keratin 9 gene, just that one gene, which affects the skin on the hands and feet. And so this is normal skin, just like your skin on your hands, except that it grows with vastly more keratin produced in it than normal skin. And so we have to come in and thin it out. And that is the proper recommended treatment. You can soften the callus with callus softener. You can use lotions with urea. You can use acids to dry it out before soaking it and scraping it off. But ultimately, you do have to take it off in whatever way is most comfortable, convenient, and practical for you to maintain so that you can have function and sensation in your hands. Because as the callus grows thicker, you really lose all sense of texture and temperature. And as it gets even thicker, you begin to not really make a fist or use your hands very nimbly. And so it's really best to take it off. And yes, we have it on both our hands and our feet. In the last video where I was doing his feet, I talked about how he asked at the end if we could start doing his hands more frequently. And I have been waiting for this day. I was very excited for him to want to be taking better care of them, to lotion them on his own, to maybe start using the tools more on his own, because I've been teaching him his whole life, but ultimately he's still rather young. He's 6, almost 7, and he's rather intimidated by these sharp tools and how much he could hurt himself if he screwed up. And so he prefers to let me do it. But with him asking me to shave them more frequently comes a new challenge, which is trying to do this delicate work on thinner skin. And I did my very best here to do the best work I could do to not hurt him, to not go too deep. And on the whole, he was very comfortable with it. But there were 2 spots that were a bit irritated by how low I went. One on the side of his thumb, which you'll see in a little bit is rather pink. And on his wrist at the very bottom of the callus, I cut just slightly too deep. No bleeding, but uncomfortable. And so now we're faced with the question of, should we continue this removal method, which is more dramatic and works better on thicker callus, or should we pivot and do something else for a while? So after a discussion with him, we decided that we're going to try sanding his hands, which is one of the 2 ways that's recommended to take this skin off, since we have to take it off. Either removal with a blade, that could be a scalpel, callus shaver, what have you, or filing it down in some way like with a rotary sander, a high-powered rotary sander. Most adults who have EPPK, this condition, choose to use a Dremel, or they use some form of shaving tool or a combination of the 2. And I do not believe he's quite ready for a Dremel, but I do think he could use my nail sander, which is a high-powered rotary sanding tool with the right bits. Unrelated to his request to start doing his hands more frequently, I recently bought a diamond bit tip with heat sink holes in it for to try to experiment on my own hands and feet. And I also bought a poto disc, 2 poto discs with different grit sandpaper. So after discussing it with him, I think that's what we're going to try next time. He should be able to do the sanding himself, and with my instruction and help, be able to learn how to use that a bit sooner in his life than being able to use this callus shaver and the hangnail clippers. And also, it will allow him to take it down more frequently without any risk of cutting too deep because the skin is thinner. So for now, this works. His hands look a lot cleaner and a lot better, and we'll be able to clean in those cracks now that they're shaved down so thin. And in the future, I think we're going to try something else.